May 26th meeting of the Rotary Club of Des Moines. I'm past president Doug Salzgaver, just in case you thought I was president Catherine Staub. I'm not. She is out today, couldn't be with us. We're happy to have everybody here today at the Embassy Club. And now, Bob Vendrell will give us a brief moment of inspiration and then lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and the four-way test. Thanks, Bob, for signing up to help today. And you, too, can sign up to give a moment of inspiration that I'm sure will be far better than what Bob's about to do. You can sign up either online or in the lobby. Bob, with that, take it over.
I've decided not to do a moment of inspiration. I decided to do a moment of reflection. We have all been impacted by the tragic events in Buffalo, in Texas. People going shopping, stopping in an aisle, share a conversation, perhaps a joke. We check in on one another. Then in Texas, students enjoying their last days of school, looking forward to playing baseball, soccer, maybe going on family vacations, all to be taken away for what? Nothing. To the brave teachers that put themselves in harm's way to save their students. And all those lives lost, the possibilities, the potential. A little girl holding up her honor roll certificate with a big smile on her face, probably anxious to get home, showing mommy and daddy what she had achieved, only sometime later that her life was taken. What were her possibilities? What were their possibilities? What was her potential? What were their possibilities, their potential? Since 1999, 311 school children have been affected by gun violence. When is enough enough? Nora, live to your possibilities. Live to your potential. Live with gratitude and kindness. Make a difference in others' lives, because it'll make a difference in yours. And maybe take a moment of silence for those lives lost, please. I leave you with this. Matthew 19:14. Jesus said, "Let the little children come to me, and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these." God rest their souls. And now the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now the four-way test, please.
Is it true? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you.
Everyone greet your fellow Rotarians. Thank you, Bob. All right. We want to welcome 3 guests today. Guests, if you would please stand when we introduce you. Mackenzie is a guest of Christina Smith. And also today, Michelle and Steve are guests of our speaker, Nora King. Let's give them a round of applause. glad to have you here with us today. And now a bit of more bad news, sad news. Longtime member Richard Johnson passed away last night. We just found out this morning, we don't have any details, but ask for a moment of silence for him. Thank you. And last week, you heard from Harvey Fries of the Golf Fellowship about a Rotary Club golf outing on Friday, June 10th. If you haven't done so already, please sign up on the sign-up sheet that's on everyone's table, and hope to see a good turnout there. And now, the real reason we're here, Josh Braby, the Rotary Youth Committee Board Liaison, will introduce our keynote speaker. Josh?
All right, good afternoon, everyone. I am happy to introduce Nora King, who is with us today as our speaker. Her parents, obviously, as guests. Michelle and Steve King also were host families for us in the same year that Nora was our outbound student, so glad that everyone is here to join us today. Nora is a junior at the University of Iowa, double majoring in French and art. She graduated from Valley High School in May of 2019 and was then off to enjoy her youth exchange experience. She was placed in District 1510, which is in Western France. And unfortunately, as you all know, 19 to 20 was her year. March of 2020 was the global pandemic, so her year was short to about 7 months. Nora was not able to share her story with us in 2020, so we're glad to have her back today and share a little bit more about her experience on our youth exchange program. So with that, please welcome Nora King.
Thank you, Josh. All right, let me get this set up. What just happened?
I don't know.
Sorry.
There you go.
All right. Hello, I am Nora King. In 2019, as Josh said, I was the Des Moines Rotary Club's outbound exchange student, and for 7 months I lived in France, absorbing the language and culture along with other students from around the world. Today, I will share with you my experience with Rotary Youth Exchange and how it helped me grow into a more thoughtful and understanding person. My adventure began in 2018 when I applied for Youth Exchange through the Des Moines Club and District 6000. After I was accepted into the program, there were a number of gatherings for the outbound students of District 6000 where we got to meet and connect with other like-minded people who were taking on the same challenge, a year abroad. At these meetings, we learned the rules of the program. We heard advice from former ROTECs who had traveled abroad, as well as international inbound students who were currently living in the United States. And we got the chance to form friendships with people from different walks of life, backgrounds, before our travels even began. Getting the opportunity to learn from these students was really important for my preparation for going abroad and understanding the cultural differences and challenges that I would be facing in my own exchange. Sorry.
That's all right.
Okay. Another. All right. No.
I touched it. It's off.
Okay. Another opportunity that really helped me prepare for my Rotary Youth Exchange was the Rotary Youth Leadership Awards, or RYLA, in 2019, held by District 6000 and District 5970. As an outbound, I was given the privilege of participating in the 6-day program on scholarship the summer before I would leave for France. At RILA, I once again had the chance to meet people from all walks of life who are my age and be inspired by their stories of their lives, perspectives, and experiences. While we were there were many participants, but we were split into smaller groups for the week, and we spent our time working on leadership, teamwork, sharing our perspectives, and diving deep into what it means to be a friend and a leader. RILA was a truly life-changing experience for me, and it opened my mind and worldview in ways that I never would have expected, but which were absolutely necessary for my success abroad. On a day in August 2019, I arrived at O'Hare Airport in Chicago wearing my rotary jacket, and I said goodbye to my parents, walked to my gate, and got ready for my flight to Paris. Sitting at my gate, I saw another girl also wearing a rotary jacket, which we both were kind of thinking it was silly, but I saw her, and so feeling nervous and feeling vulnerable, I went to talk to her. We easily slipped into conversation and exchanged contact info before we boarded the flight. We didn't sit together, but once we landed, we tackled Charles de Gaulle Airport together. And although we didn't end up in the same district, we kept in contact during our exchange, and we still FaceTime and text to this day. This was just someone I met in an airport wearing a jacket, and I think that shows how the jacket is honestly a symbol of the friendship and connection that youth exchange can provide. Once we separated, I was met by my inbound coordinator and a number of other Rotarians, and I was taken to a hotel conference room to meet with the other students who would be living in my host district. Once in France, I was living in District 1510, which has the Deux-Sèvres, Loire-Atlantique, Maine et Loire, Vendée, and Sarthe regions in the west of France. The whole region is better known as Pays de la Loire, or Loire Valley, and my host region was Sarthe, which is named after the Sarthe River. After meeting the students and a few Rotarians from my district in Paris, we all got on a bus to travel to our respective towns. I was in a host town called Sablé-sur-Sarthe. It was a lovely town, about 12,000 people, and it was quite rural and a lot smaller than I had grown up in Des Moines and West Des Moines. But when I first arrived, I was a little worried about living in a smaller town, but I found that there was so much to discover and to do while I wasn't in school or with my host families. There were so many delicious restaurants that I can think about even now, from like kebab sandwich shops to gourmet pizzerias. Oh, it was so good. And a number of bakeries and patisseries, which were incredible. There were 2 high schools and a music conservatory where I participated in choir, and I joined a band where I was the singer. I really loved walking around and exploring the different areas of town with friends or on my own after school, checking out shops and walking along the river. And in retrospect, I'm so grateful to be in a town of Sablé's size because it gave me a chance to become more intimately acquainted with the people, the sights, the sounds, the spots, everything, while being able to walk anywhere from my school in about 15 minutes or 10. And of the 2 schools in Sablé, I was in the small private school called Lycée Sainte-Anne. Oh, it didn't go.
Okay. I'm doing it.
Okay. And I was the only exchange student of 3 in my town who was at this school, which was a real challenge for me at first, but there were students who had previously done exchanges in America who were French, and so they helped me out my first few weeks there, got me acquainted with the others, and I had already graduated from high school in the United States while I was attending school here. So it wasn't so much an academic exchange for me as it was a cultural one, but that being said, I was put in the language and literature track, which really, I took 8 hours of philosophy, French literature, and English as a foreign language, which was very interesting and really opened my eyes to like ESL speakers in the American school system and how they might feel taking Spanish, for example, as a foreign language. It was very interesting, kind of funny sometimes, but it really helped with my language acquisition to be able to take language classes like that. And while I was learning French and enjoying my school life, my school friends were preparing for their BAC tests, which are the big French exam at the end of the year. They were mostly focused on their studies, but we had some interesting events. Like in January, I was surprised to find that they brought a cake to almost every day of class as kind of a tradition. There's these galette cakes that they bring. It was just very interesting and different cultural traditions. So while neither of the other exchange students in town attended my school, luckily one of my host brothers did. We weren't in the same academic track, but I had someone to talk to as I went to school. My first family were the Beauvays, and they were a large and loving family. My host father was a business owner who had a factory making screws and widgets and had some local retail spots. My host mom was a midwife, and they had 6 children from ages 7 to 23, and they had a sense of humor about naming them. Their last name Beauvais, the kids' names from oldest to youngest, the first letter of their name spelled out Beauvais, until the last 2. They said we don't want 8 kids, so they named the last 2 with the first 2 letters of their name to spell at the end. I got to meet most of my host siblings. One was living in Argentina at the time, and the oldest 2 lived on their own and were in college and grown. But their home was always bursting with energy and bursting with people. They hosted other exchange students at the same time I was there. A girl from Germany who was living in Nantes, some students from England. It was always full of people. And I think this prepared me a lot for my life now, because I currently live in a house with 7 girls. And so getting a chance to live with a big family after I'd only ever lived with 4 people in my own family was definitely very interesting and helpful experience going forward. My second host family were the Davids. They were a family of 4 and had a son living in Brazil, as well as a daughter who was a few years younger than me. And this host family had a very different job than the first. They were in a traveling theater troupe where they performed and taught acting and theater around the region and around the country. And they were very good friends with the Beauvais family, because the father and the business that he ran were the patrons of their theater troupe. So it was really fun, and they always got together and had dinners, and this family had dinners with so many people all the time. They had people over, they had people, we went to people's homes. It was great to meet all kinds of people from all different walks of life in France and all different professions. And then I was extremely lucky with my living arrangements as an exchange student. When I arrived, the Beauvais told me there was a little surprise about their summer home. And as they drove up, I discovered that they lived in an actual castle. The Chateau Verdel, as it's called, was built in 1940, before Columbus even came to America. 1490, sorry. Sorry. 1490. Before Columbus came to America, and it was the site of a number of historic battlefields. And I got the chance to live there for about a month, which was just incredible. I never thought that I was going to be living in a castle when I decided that I would go on exchange. And then as the summer ended, we moved into their usual home, which was no less grand. It was a huge manor house, and with a greenhouse and garage, and it was just gorgeous as well. And this was just something I had never expected. It was so fantastic, and to see this architecture and historical just beauty of their house was incredible. And then the David's home was very different. They lived in a farmhouse and grew a lot of their own food, and the whole place was just covered with art that they had done, DIY projects, art from their children. Every wall was painted with some kind of mural, and that was just a different kind of fantastic and beautiful. And I think I got really, really lucky with the places that I was living. So I've talked about my situation and my location a bit, so I want to talk about some of the trips and tours and cultural stuff that I got to take in while I was with my clubs and my district and my families. So in my club, as I mentioned, there were only 2 other students besides myself. So I got to know them really well. And although they were not at my school, they had French lessons together, Rotary meetings, we presented at Rotary meetings, so it's a relief to be speaking in English now. And met with the Interact Club, and we helped with the town's Christmas festivities. We did a whole bunch. But what was really meaningful was that the club was generous enough to take us with 2 counselors on a cultural trip to the Lascaux Caves, the prehistoric caves that have all kinds of beautiful cave art and stuff, as well as the Abbey Fontchevaux, which is an old abbey. And we spent the weekend checking out the cave art and eating foie gras, which was great. And this was just a chance to learn and experience some historic places in France that, with a smaller group of people, although we also got the chance to do this with bigger attractions and with our bigger group in the district. With the 1510 group, I got to make really great friendships that I still maintain to this day, even though we were all scattered across our region. We met up in big groups about once a month to go on different tours and attractions. We got to see the Machine de Lille in Nantes, the Leonardo da Vinci house and gravesite in Amboise, a Christmas market and a scavenger hunt in Tours, and the tapestries of the apocalypse in Angers, along with many other cultural monuments and locations along the way. And the nearest town to me was Angers. And so on weekends, when I didn't have meetings or group gatherings, I would go by the train to visit some of my friends there, go shopping, and visit the Chateau d'Angers. And I really loved living in my smaller town, Sablé-sur-Sarthe, but getting the chance to go to a bigger city as well kind of made my experience more versatile and more diverse, because I got to just spend more time with some friends and see some bigger cities. It was a great opportunity. And even one of the friends who was in this district, she was not in Angers, but I've hosted someone in my own house in Iowa City from New York who I met over this exchange. So that's just something. I think we're all still connected, and it's a great experience. And then I want to talk about food. There was so much good food. There was delicious, like, gourmet food, but anything from a kebab sandwich to foie gras to anything. French food is so good. Oh my gosh. I just wanted to put this in. It doesn't really go with the rest of the theme, but I had to put some pictures. I thought you guys would appreciate it. I never got to try escargot, but I did get to eat so much good stuff. And my French families even taught me some recipes that I still make to this day and make for friends at dinner parties or just for myself. So over the holidays, the Beauvays were visiting their daughter in Brazil, so I stayed for a week with a Rotarian family. We traveled to Pornic, which is a seaside town where they had a vacation home, and we dined over New Year's with other Rotarians and had a huge seafood feast. It was incredible. It was freshly caught. And I got to go on a number of trips with my host families to visit their son in Laval, or to Angers, or to any other number of places. And one of the best experiences that I had was that the Beauvais' father was a hobby pilot, and he restored old Cessna planes. And so he took us, me, my host mother himself, and their youngest daughter, up in his Cessna plane. We flew to Venice for a weekend, just for a jaunt. And this, once again, just like the castle, this was such a surprise to me. I had never expected something like this to happen, but it was such an experience that I don't think most people have not had this type of experience before, so it was just incredible. And then, other than these, I visited Paris once, right before I would embark on a bus trip around southern France. I was staying with the David family at the time, and the Beauvais were also hosting one of the students in my town, so we met up in France. stayed with the Davids and had a great time. And we even went to the circus during this trip, which I thought was a really cool experience. But I was content to see Paris from a French person's point of view. I didn't see the Eiffel Tower more than once when I was there, even in the distance. But it was very nice to see it in a French person's point of view rather than in a tourist's point of view. And then from Paris, I went on a bus trip with a number of students from other districts, where we visited many parts of southern France, many different locations and food once again. And it was great to get to meet exchange students from other districts. Once again, I still keep in contact with many of these people. Even though we only knew each other for about a week, we still stay in contact. I think this is a great program to really get close bonds with people in a short amount of time. Because you're all put into the same experience, into the same challenges, and so you really get to relate to other people. And during this trip, there were whispers and rumors of a virus that was taking Asia by storm, an epidemic. As the carefree students that we were, we kind of laughed it off and were like, oh, we're on our trip, it's okay. Little did we know. It would change our lives. But for me, one of the best moments was right before the pandemic got serious. We went to Nice for Carnival during this trip, but Carnival was canceled due to weather and due to the pandemic, which we were like, what's that? That doesn't matter. Okay. We didn't know at the time, of course. But we got to gallivant around Nice for 2 hours, and I actually met up with a friend who was French, who I had met online, who lived in Nice. And she was just a few blocks away from me, and she led me around the city and met some of my other friends. This was just very interesting to meet up with somebody who was French, who I never thought that I would meet. And we even ran into a group of other exchange students from a different program. It was just a great experience to get to meet people, just to have coincidences and meet people on our own time, right before the world was about to stop, pretty much. And then one fateful weekend in March, my family came to visit me in France and have a vacation of their own. They'd planned this since I first arrived, which was completely coincidental. That this was the weekend of March 13, 2020, which is now a familiar date to everyone. And although the students and I had been lax about COVID during our bus trip, it was starting to become a recognizable problem in our lives, as I had just gotten taken off of school for our coronacation, which was supposed to be 2 weeks. And then at the time that my family were there, we started hearing they're going to shut down school, they're going to shut down the airports, all of these regulations were going to come into place. And so after having some meals with our host families and our counselors, after having many talks, and even meeting some of my friends who hadn't already left for their home countries due to COVID, we decided that it would be the best decision for me to go home with my host family. Go home with my real family, sorry. One of my host families was, my current host family, the Davids, was trying to already bring back their son from Brazil. My next host family's mother was a nurse and was adamantly saying, you don't want to be here, we won't be able to keep you well over the confinement, just go home. I talked to my host country, I talked to the people in the United States, and we decided it was the best decision. So after almost a movie-like experience of driving to Paris, trying to find a flight out of the country, they didn't even have a flight back to the US. We had to lay over in Germany for like 14 hours, and we flew to DC, then to Kansas City, and then back. It was 48 hours of like an escape movie, almost. We made it back, and I spent the confinement with my own family in the United States. And as I was leaving, I was understandably upset, but this was definitely the best decision. And I realized that as over the summer, and over the confinement period, we were hosting a German exchange student who was stuck in the United States. And this very much immediately after I had been a student being hosted by a family, my perspective kind of shifted, and I recognized, I kind of understood my role as an exchange student and how I had been in the family differently than as I had as an exchange student now that we were hosts. But I got to understand the joys and hardships of being a host family. And it was a really fascinating experience to host immediately after, especially in a time when he can't really leave. And he was stuck, he wasn't really supposed to be there, so he was trying to escape as much as I had been immediately before I left. So that was just a very interesting experience. And then flash forward to a few years to now. I'm about to be a junior, and I'm studying French language at the University of Iowa. I keep in contact with so many people I met in France, friends, family, other inbounds, the outbounds I met in Iowa, the people I met at RILA. This has created so many connections for me across the world. And I've even had the chance to meet up with some people who live in the United States. And many students who went to RILA go to the University of Iowa, and I'm good friends with them. And having this incredible opportunity of participating in Rotary Youth Exchange really changed my life. And it opened me to a totally new perspective on myself, on life, on other people, on interactions with other people. And I think that you can only gain this type of experience by spending time and spending relation in a foreign culture with foreign people, because it truly, I didn't think it was going to be that different other than the language, but it really was. It was very, very different, and it opened my mind so much. And it taught me so many lessons, especially like how to live with 7 girls, which I would not have been prepared for had I not done this. Or how to make perfect spaghetti bolognese from scratch. Just, I learned so much. And although it was cut short by the pandemic that made the world stop, I've learned to keep forging my path forward into the future. And I'm still unsure about what I'll be doing, but I know that it'll be something good. And I know that I have this network of connections that I can rely on and who can help me find my path. And there's definitely a good chance in my future that I will be returning to France, whether it be for work or school or just for visits to my host families and my friends that I made along the way, and that I had to leave so suddenly. So I want to thank you guys all for letting me speak here, for having me, and I would like to take any questions if you have any. Any questions? Yes.
So again, where are you at in college, and do you have any plans after college at this point?
So where am I in college, and do I have any plans? I'm currently a junior at the University of Iowa, and I'm studying art, and I'm studying French as well. So I don't really know what I want to do as my job in the future, but I do know that I have many interests that I'm pursuing, and I have faith that wherever I go and whatever path I take, it will turn out successful for me, especially because I've learned so much. Yes?
Could you talk just a little bit about the language issues that you encountered and how it related to the studies you did or did not have
Yes.
before you left, and what happened after you got there? And just talk about the whole language.
Oh,
thing
yes,
just a little
yes.
bit.
So, talking about the language issues that I had and what I learned before, I had taken 4 years of high school French before I left, which as I arrived, I realized did not help me at all. Not even a bit. But it definitely was a challenge to intake the language People talked very quickly. Some people were very, very helpful about taking things slow, and I would ask and they would correct me. Some people, especially students at school, were kind of like, whatever, we're just gonna tease you that you don't speak French. But eventually I got it. I took language classes in school and French literature classes. So I knew how to read French, but speaking was definitely the biggest struggle for me. And then I also took French lessons once or twice a week with just a little old lady. She was so sweet. Those really, really helped. Definitely being there and just speaking with people and trying my best. It was tough sometimes, absolutely, to want to maintain the energy to constantly be speaking and learning French. But when you put in the work and you put in the effort, you definitely make a huge amount of difference in your speaking abilities and in your comprehension abilities. So now, I wouldn't say I'm fluent anymore, but I was when I left. Sadly, due to the pandemic, it dropped a little bit, my level, just because I was taken out so suddenly. But definitely, I'm still working and learning on it every day.
Follow-on question.
Oh, yes.
Did you get to the point where you learned how to dream in French?
Oh, yes. Did I dream in French? At about the 7-month mark, just as I was leaving, I started to dream in French. And so as I came home, I was dreaming in French, but then because I was back in the United States and everybody was speaking English, and I transferred back. So I did get to that point, but it fell off a bit. So that was just, yes.
Nora, thank you for being a great ambassador for our club and a wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
Just a quick question. Did you ever get homesick?
Did I ever get homesick? Absolutely, yes. But there were so many people there who were helping me to enjoy my life there, and were helping me to take that time to really appreciate where I was. I think everybody does get homesick. I think it's just a part of it, and there's a huge amount of culture shock that happens when you get there. But the people that I was with, and the Rotarians and the families that I had, were so helpful about reminding me how to just enjoy and appreciate where I was. I think that was really important, though. Being homesick is real. Yes.
Did you get a sense of what your host families thought of America or Americans, and if there was a difference between their thoughts on it?
Did I get a sense of my host family's thoughts on Americans and were there differences? Yes, I would say my first host family, well, I got a sense. This was at the time that my mom's saying careful. Yeah, I think they had different views. One was a business owner and owned a castle. One was a theater person and owned a farm. I think they did have different views, but you know, it didn't really, I think that me being in their homes gave them an opportunity to understand and recognize that people are just people, and the politics of a country is not the same as the people of a country. So, I'm not really sure. Yeah, I think that's going to be my answer for that one. Yes.
Will you have the chance to study abroad in a French-speaking country during your education at the University of Iowa?
Will I get the chance to study abroad in a French-speaking country during my education at Iowa? I hope so. As I'm currently a junior, I'm not going to study abroad this year, maybe senior year, especially because I'm a French major. I may get the chance. If not, grad school, maybe. We'll see. I hope so, though. I definitely do.
Nora, thank you for your presentation. It's really great to see you become so mature and
Thank you.
grow. I'm wondering, is there anything that would, on leaving the United States, going to France, preconceived notions of what you were going to expect that were completely obliterated once you got there?
Yes, were my preconceived notions of France obliterated? The bread was just as good as I thought, but I honestly expected that it wouldn't be so far off from living in the United States other than the language, and I was dead wrong. There were so many cultural differences just with the way that people interacted and the things that people would talk about. I had come from a very boisterous choir department at my high school, was mostly my friends, and then when I got to French school, they were very much more reserved, which I hadn't really expected, although you hear that. They were not cold, but they were reserved, and that was very different. I had kind of just gone in, not really, I'd been warned about the culture shock, but I wasn't really expecting it as much as it hit me. So I think, yes, that there were many, many differences that I was very shocked by.
I have one question
Yes.
for you. Did you get an A in English as a second language?
Yes, I did get an A in English as a second language. Yes, I did.
Great job.
Great job.
Wow. I think we made a good choice for her going home, didn't we? Thank you, Nora, for your presentation today, and as past President Sean said, for being an outstanding ambassador to Rotary and our country. We are donating a book in your honor through the Rotary Rosie Reader Van through the Des Moines Public Library Foundation. Last year, our Rotary Club of Des Moines Foundation donated $40,000 so they could purchase this van and through our community grant program. Josh tapped me on the shoulder as she was talking about the houses she lived in and said our local host families really need to kick up their game. We have a castle for a summer house here in Iowa. Good luck finding that. Upcoming meetings here at the Embassy Club. Please think about someone you know who may enjoy hearing from our speakers and invite them to Rotary. And of course, you and your guests both need to register before 9 a.m. on Wednesdays. Upcoming meetings. June 2nd. Boy, can I be much more excited about this one? Bill Finley, Iowa State University's women's basketball coach. I'm really excited about that. So excited, in fact, that June 9th we're going to have to take off because we're not going to have a meeting. The Embassy Club cannot host us that day, but please join up for a golf outing that Friday to make up for it. June 16th, the International Service Project with Tunisia Rotary Club. And then more to come after that, of course. Thank you for being with us here today at the Embassy Club and being part of your Rotary Club of Des Moines. I hope all of you are looking forward to Memorial Day, which is my favorite holiday of the year, where we get to remember and pay tribute to all the brave men and women who have made and kept our country free. We are adjourned.